I have today sent a letter to Governor Wallace and recommended that he, by executive order, establish a utility consumer representative group under the office of the governor to provide consumers with the best representation possibly obtainable. The PSC will make available to him upon his request
occasions before the North Carolina Public Service Commission. He also teaches.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis. Do you have any questions that you would like to pose at this time to either Dr. Curtis, Dr. Moore? I foresee any case in which the consumer needs to be represented far along that consumers of this state are going to need all the help.
Dr. Robert Montjoy, who's sitting across the table from me, is an associate professor of public administration at Auburn University. He will co-chair the committee.
And there at the state capitol there's a star, the Star of Israel, you know, and so in heaven, instead of a 5-pointed star, there's a 6-pointed star. It's going to cost the state of Alabama $1,408,000,000 a year by the year 1990 for our prison system alone. And I'm thinking about education, and highways, and those things. What I'm trying to say, that's going to affect very much those of you in the contracting business and who own contractors' boards. There may be more prison being built and roads by that time unless we have some rulings. Well, it's going to cost the state of Alabama $1,408,000,000 a year by the year 1990 for our prison system alone. And I'm thinking about education, and highways, and those things. What I'm trying to say, that's going to affect very much those of you in the contracting business and who own contractors' boards. There may be more prison being built and roads by that time unless we have some rulings. Folks in Congress about what to do and don't do, and ethics and here and there. I just tell you about my ethics. I think I formed them a long time ago. I was farming, and I was down on a little dusty road, connected it when I was about 8 or 9 years of age. A little.
Tell you, it's important. What's important? People come.
You can make calling card, third number bill to a third number type calls, person to person when you're making a 0+ call, and also collect calls without having to have that coin.
Reverend Faldwell says the moral majority is trying to register between 2 and 3 million voters nationwide by October 1984. The organization is working primarily through churches and religious groups, but it will also utilize national mailing and media campaigns to persuade conservatives to get out and vote. Mr. Faldwell says that's the only way to get President Reagan or a Reagan type elected in 1984. The Virginia minister says his group is taking a cue from the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who's conducting a voter registration drive for blacks. Mr. Faldwell says the difference is that Mr. Jackson's drive leans toward racism.
What I consider to be racist statements made in North Carolina, that if we register enough black voters, we will put all black members of Congress in Washington from the district, from the area. We're not out to put all white representatives in Washington or all black. Just the persons that best represent our point of view and what
Mr. Falwell, who admits to support of President Reagan, says he agrees with the president's handling of the Soviet attack on the Korean jetliner. He also says there may be a silver lining in that dark cloud.
Namely, the international nuclear freeze today is momentarily paralyzed, and I pray it'll become a permanent illness.
Lois Russell, WSFA TV News.
This will help the president get his defense budget through. It will help.
The moral majority stopped in 4 Alabama cities today. Reverend Falwell and Alabama Senator Jeremiah Denton said the moral majority wants to register between 2 and 3 million voters by October 1984. And Reverend Falwell says he's urging pastors to set up voter registration booths at their churches on Sunday. The Virginia minister says conservative Americans have been losing out in elections by default because not enough conservatives are voting. He says they could take a few lessons from the Reverend Jesse Jackson and his drive for black voter registration.
We're trying across the country to do from the conservative side what, for example, Jesse Jackson is doing from the other side. We think he's within his rights doing what he's doing. We like what he's doing. We just plan to do it bigger and better.
Mr. Falwell says the moral majority is nonpartisan and doesn't make political endorsements, but he says he's going to work for President Reagan if he decides to run again. And while some conservatives have been criticizing the president for being too lenient with the Soviets for their attack on the Korean jetliner, Mr. Falwell says he thinks Mr. Reagan did all he could without provoking the Soviets. And he says he doesn't think the president has closed the book on that incident yet. Lois Russell, WSFA TV News.
I saw that as a tremendous opportunity for a unified statement, a revitalization of the realization of the nature of our enemy, our major adversary, as a result of that KAL shoot-down. And I took exception to the amendments offered by some of my best friends in the Senate to drive that point home. We've got to unite behind our Commander-in-Chief when we have a major foreign policy decision to be made.
A two-pronged program which I believe will give to the citizen.
Formby also has an extensive background in...
Today, with the support of Commissioners Folsom and Greer, I have appointed a 6-member team of experts from major Alabama universities to study and present alternative solutions to many of our PSC long-standing organizational problems. These experts will be conducting interviews and investigating this group. And let me quote, 77, the legislature earmarked $250,000 a year to be used jointly by the President of the Public Service Commission, the Governor of the state, and the Attorney General's office.
Formby also has an extensive background in utility economics, having testified...
If he so desires, some of our staff. Divestiture right now is so far along that consumers of this state are going to need all the help that they can get. It's just too late to start training folks to
work with other organizations and other groups of people who have a real common interest. Because we get caught trying to implement and trying to work with.
Alabama seems to be getting more and more bogged down in turfdom and special interest elements, and further away from the needs of the delivery of education to children K through 12 and students in higher education. We must look real to children in the public school system. I am state president of PTA, but this is not, as state president of PTA, that I'm...
Board policy.
Nestled among the hills of New York's Finger Lakes region, Watkins Glen at the southern end of Seneca Lake is the site of the $98,000 Watkins Glen Invitational Bass Tournament. Winemaking is a century-old tradition along the slopes of 43,000-acre Seneca Lake, a 600-foot deep clear glacial lake carved centuries ago by nature's handiwork. World-famous Watkins Glen Gorge brings thousands of visitors to view nature's wonders, but the challenge of smallmouth bass fishing and a $25,000 top prize lures 250 bass fishing professionals from 26 states in Canada to New York State. Paul Elias of Laurel, Mississippi, the 1982 world champion as winner of the Bassmasters Classic, following a winless off year, takes command from the start of the three-day fish-off and withstands all challengers, including 25 to 40-mile-per-hour winds that turned the fishing waters into 8-foot roller coaster waves on the final day of the three-day tournament.
Well, I picked out a major point on the lake, and there was a bay just on the other side of it. I went over to check it out first, and I found a major weed line that dropped off sharp into the main lake, and I knew that I had a migration point there, so I just stayed with that weed line. I caught some good fish on it, and I spent the whole tournament on it. I was throwing a crankbait, a bone and orange-colored crankbait, and a crawfish-colored, brown and chartreuse color.
Elias, with a three-day catch of 14 smallmouth bass and 32 pounds, wins $7,000 cash and an $18,000 Ranger bass boat. Bo Dowden of Natchitoches, Louisiana, the 1980 world champion bass angler, ranks second with 25 pounds, 2 ounces of bass. Next stop on the Play for Pay Bass Tournament Trail is the $112,000 Missouri Invitational on Truman Lake near Warsaw, Missouri on October 5th. This is Dan Black on the Bass Tournament Trail from Watkins Glen, New York.
You got to tell you, she's accompanied by my good friend.
That's right.
Father.
No, good job. Congratulations. Proud of you. All right. Some of you won't, but it's all up to you. Every one of you have got an equal opportunity to be unequal. It says that those who want to achieve the took some doing too, didn't it? Right there.
No, sir, he's resting today. Thank you, sir.
Put everybody on his diet.
Look at the weight he's lost, man.
Yes, sir.
Rick Madeira.
Uniontown is a small West Alabama community of 2,000 people. Its largest industry is a garment plant. City Hall employs 38 people. 3 of them may be engaged in activities that are in violation of the state law. Josephine Jackson is the city clerk. James Taylor is the janitor for Uniontown. We'll get back to the 3rd employee later. Greyhound and Trailway bus lines have regularly scheduled service through Uniontown. The depot is the Uniontown City Hall. The agent is City Clerk Josephine Jackson.
What time's the next bus stop out here?
At 1:50.
1:50? It's the only one that's going to be here?
Going to Montgomery. Now, I have one coming at 12:20 going to Demopolis.
Baggage is kept at City Hall. Janitor James Taylor also works for the bus lines while on city time.
Right around the corner from the bus operation, we discovered another private enterprise in progress, this time having to do with automobiles.
These signs say it all, in accordance with state law. But the city mechanic, James Abraham, is allowed to repair privately owned vehicles while on city property and city time. This car was being worked on in the city garage the day we visited. This is apparently in violation of state law. Uniontown Mayor Andrew Hayden says the activity is a service to the citizens of Uniontown.
So I took the opportunity to give the people the services by allowing the city clerk to provide a place where they can buy a ticket and a place to keep people out of the weather during times when they are having to go to buses and go to places from the bus station. In the other case that you mentioned to me, we have a city mechanic who does all the work for the city, and his prime obligation is to do that. We couldn't pay him what he should get by doing the work that he does there. So as a compensation for him, we let him use his own time other than what he has to do for the city.
We brought the situation to the attention of the Ethics Commission.
Well, let me assure you that that is a matter in which the Ethics Commission would take a real interest, because it involves sections of the ethics law. And if you'll give us an opportunity, the matter will be inquired into.
Perry Rockmore, legal counsel for the Alabama League of Municipalities, says the Uniontown arrangement is highly questionable. Early today, the State Ethics Commission contacted Uniontown Mayor Andrew Hayden on the matter. The outcome of that inquiry has not been made public. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News, Uniontown.
addition of R6 to R75 and Council,
give on that. At this point, there is no compromise. All proposals have been shoved in the corner.
Continue to be zoned as Ag 1.
Leave a totally useless piece of land. It would devastate the integrity of development.
Who will sustain the planning commission? Have a motion to sustain the recommendations planning commission. 4 opposed. 4 motions. As the time vote, the motion fails to carry. We're back to square one. Need a motion.
I want the truth out. I'm not deliberately trying to suppress information. I'm trying to honor an obligation I gave in order to get the information.
Councilman Watkins says it's not been easy for him to hold out on the grand jury. What's changed for him, what prompted his offer to the district attorney, is 2 of his police sources appear ready to come forward.
They have indicated to me that they are gonna, when sent for, either voluntarily or through subpoena to the grand jury, they're gonna tell the grand jury what they told me. So our interests at this point are congruent. I'll tell the grand jury who they are and what they told me to give the grand jury sort of a blueprint for examining them, and they have indicated to me that they'll tell the grand jury everything they told me.
But Councilman Watkins makes it quite clear that if the DA can't guarantee his 2 police officers protection, he'll take his chances with the Supreme Court on his appeal.
Those people work down there. They know what can happen to police officers who break the silence, and it's real. If it wasn't real, we wouldn't be requesting it.
So the threat that they might be
hurt.
What about physically harmed?
Physically hurt.
How real is that threat?
It's very real.
Mr. Watkins now indicates the 2 police officers will talk about much more than the alleged beatings of 8 black suspects. He says they can unravel a cover-up of Todd Road and more instances of police misconduct. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
To address the question, I think to leave a 240-foot strip right here surrounded on 3 sides would leave a totally useless
And the joint property line to continue to be zoned as Ag 1. At the end of the 30-day period, once it has been recommended to the council by the planning commission, at the end of the 30-day period, it takes the recommendation.
I move to sustain the planning commission.
Have a motion to sustain the recommendations planning commission.
The law does not now this rule to affect anyway.
Move on to the next item of business.
All right.
All right, next item of business.
What Mr. James is going to do about
Well, as you know, I manage a small business myself, and I've been disturbed about the same things that you're disturbed about. I've had some and people under his direction can open into business for himself, came back later because he was not satisfied. I'm a fair-minded person, and I don't want to make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to replace Chief Swindle during the heat of the campaign. If I become mayor, I'd like to talk to some of those high-ranking officers.
We're excited about a special talk line this morning with mayoral candidate Franklin James is with us. Good morning, Mr. James.
Good morning, Larry.
It's good to have you with us.
Well, it's great to be here.
As challenger, Mr. James wasted no time telling listeners Montgomery is ready for a change.
I feel like the people of Montgomery have become impatient with the leadership that we've got. They're tired of the bickering that goes on at council meetings.
During the hour-long radio call-in, one listener asked Mr. James, if elected, would he reinstate the Police Review Board policy and would he replace Charles Swindle as police chief? Mr. James would not commit on either issue.
I'm a fair-minded person, and I don't want to make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to replace Chief Swindle during the heat of the campaign.
Mr. James has no problems with the way the Todd Road case is being handled. One caller asked if he would go along with a proposal to grant immunity for 2 police officers who reportedly have information about alleged police beatings in the case.
That situation has been right where it should have been. It's been in the grand jury. It doesn't need to be debated at council meetings. It doesn't need to be debated in political campaigns. We've got courts and we've got grand juries to decide those kinds of things. And it would help this entire community when we have an incident like that, if we went ahead and investigated it in the proper channels. It's not something to be debated in a political forum. You've got a police officer that's been shot, and we all feel real bad about that. You've got one that's been in.
The retirement systems has 193 million state tax dollars to put into the teachers' retirement system for the fiscal year beginning next month. But an actuarial firm from Atlanta that routinely examines the needs for the RSA says that's too much money. Governor Wallace, whose administration has labored to make fiscal ends meet, told us that the overfunding comes as no surprise.
Some of us felt that with the less teacher units and otherwise, that I believe that we would check and find that that was a little too much. And Mr. Bronner confirmed that when he sent us a letter, and we feel very good about it. And we may find money even in the past.
But retirement head David Bronner says there's no way to go back and recover past overfundings.
Because that's already reflected. For example, if there was an overpayment in those years, it's reflected in the next employer cost each year.
Administration spokesmen say a special session to appropriate the money isn't likely. And Governor Wallace is cautious about giving his opinion on how the extra money should be spent.
Well, there's so many needs of education that it'll take more money than that to do what we ought to do for education of the children of Alabama. So just say it's going to be used for education.
But the governor didn't rule out the possibility that the newfound money could be used for teacher pay raises. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
But we authorized to borrow $82 million, but we only had to borrow $56 million, and we are going to pay that back. But they have given us interest on the matter, which will be $5 to $6 million, which employees and employers will not have to pay back to the federal government, which I think is a very good break they've given us.
As I continue a citizen thereof. And that I will faithfully and honestly. And that I will faithfully and honestly.
Do not have a chairman to conduct the election.
We're hiring, and that at the time that.
Now, the first item on the agenda that you have before you, is that the agenda I gave you the other day? Let me give you a new one. Temporary work or work where the funding may not last over a long period of time.
Do you worry about your team having a broken heart going up there?
Well, you're always concerned about it, but I think if this team has got the kind of ambition that I think they've got, we'll be ready to play against Tennessee.
The Texas game was a hard loss to us because I thought we were a good team, and I think maybe the Texas game is probably a good lesson to us. It kind of brought us down to earth, but I think we'll be ready for the Tennessee game.
Well, it wasn't a conference game, so why should we be down? We're looking forward to playing Tennessee right now, and we've put Texas back in the corner somewhere and looking forward to going to Knoxville.
You want the ball more this week?
Well, I can't say that I'm going to get it more, but it just depends on the plays that they call from the press box.
That's the nature of the offense. It dictates what you do, right?
Yes.
You accept that?
I sure do.
Hey, you caught a little heat this week. How you feel?
I feel pretty good right now. We're
make you mad?
Yeah, it made me mad. It made me real mad. But everybody on our team hates to lose. We got a real competitive bunch of players. But there's only one thing you can do about it, and that's go out and play somebody else and win. So that's what we're looking forward to this weekend.
You knew it could be this way when you took the job anyway, didn't you?
Sure did.
The current events surrounding President Randolph are being described as delicate. Still, no one close to the situation is willing to talk publicly about what's going on. Not now, and probably not until the meeting Saturday with the Board of Trustees. What is known is that during the meeting last Saturday, 8 out of 10 trustees met to put the future of the university in perspective, a future that unnamed sources say is likely to exclude Dr. Randolph. The question not yet officially answered is, during that meeting, did the board ask Dr. Randolph to resign, and is he going to? I've been told the unofficial answer to both questions is yes, and that Dr. Randolph agreed to step down in November, but until then, he'll continue working as president. The issue has divided some alumni who are also remaining silent about the matter. However, those who are supporting Dr. Randolph are saying they're planning strategy, which includes attending the upcoming board meeting. In the meantime, sources say the Board of Trustees is moving ahead with plans of its own. I'm told the board is looking for a leader who will be, quote, honest, trustworthy, and who will have the best interest of ASU at heart. I'm also told it was those qualities some trustees regarded as lacking in the current administration. But according to some who will probably have a hand in screening future candidates, those qualities will be on the priority list for whomever is the next president of Alabama State, who's also likely to have closer ties with the university. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
The Justice Department's approval of the new redistricting plan ends a 2-year battle for the Montgomery City Council. The council has made 4 unsuccessful attempts to redraw district lines. The council's original plan was rejected by federal Judge Myron Thompson because it decreased the number of black voters in District 3 represented by Councilman Joe Reed. That first plan would have made District 3 about 68% black. The new plan preserves the district's black population at 80%.
The new plan that's been now pre-cleared by the Justice Department means that we ought to have the city elections on October 11 under the plan that was agreed on, the compromise plan, which was agreed on and passed by the council.
The compromise plan seems to satisfy all concerned. Attorneys on both sides of the issue say it's fair. Plaintiff's attorney Solomon Say said when it passed the council that the plan complied with Judge Thompson's order. Council Chairman Willie Peake says looking at the plan as a whole, the new map is good for all 9 districts. Mr. Peake says he's just glad to have the matter settled so the council can move on to other things. But the plan has one more hurdle. It must be approved by Judge Thompson. Mr. Azar says he doesn't think that will be a problem, though, since all parties are in agreement. Lois Russell, WSFA TV News.
Dud is a dud, and we will continue to pour it out until they give us our share.
And so today, as mayor of the city of Tuskegee and as president of the National, to my fellow colleagues who serve. But Operation Push obviously had figures which reflected that sales were off, and of course Anheuser-Busch had figures which indicated that sales were not off. So it's just a matter of whose figures you want to put credence in. The point of the matter is we're just pleased that the boycott is behind us. We think that Anheuser-Busch is moving in the right direction.
You got peace going on. I'm an advocate of that.
And sell more beer.
This time, I'd just like to say that, of course, from our end, we will continue to support the community as we have in the past, and I can't comment on any of the...
We were able to come up with this final agreement. I'm also from Opelika, Alabama. We welcome the program that to my fellow colleagues who served on that committee.
And we will continue to pour it out until they give us our share.
Finally accept them. So today, now that the boycott is over, we accept these, and we will think with Africa, and these portraits depict the great third of them are black, so I think they're certainly moving in the right direction. So, Mr. LeGrand, you...
set.
Fraternity rush is synonymous with lots of booze and wild parties. Well, some of that's changed this year. Here at Auburn University, as well as other campuses across the state, fraternities are rushing without alcohol. They're practicing something called dry rush. Pepsi instead of beer, coolers full of it. Not the norm for these fraternity brothers and their guests, but a rule, one that carries stiff penalties for infractions, $500 a shot. To some, the idea of an alcohol-free rush isn't such a bad idea.
We've had some troubles in the past, and we really just wanted to improve our name and let people know that we are for the best of Auburn University.
Drinking has always been a big part of fraternity rush, so this year, new forms of entertainment had to be found.
I believe one night of wet rush would be fine, and that is what the IFC voted in, but the administration came down on us.
Well, what about next year? You want to try to change the rule?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News at Auburn University.
Confidence.
The Commodores come in at 1-1 and fresh off this last-second victory over Iowa State last Saturday. Vandy boasts of the fourth-best offense in the nation, led by quarterback Kurt Page, who almost pulled off the upset over Alabama last year. The Vandy defense returns 8 starters from a year ago. It all adds up to the toughest test so far this season for Alabama.
Vanderbilt has always been a team that plays Alabama hard. Always have been, as far as I can remember. And, I think they've got a better football team. We have to consider it to be a better football team than last year for several reasons, mainly because they've got 8 or 9 starters back on defense. That's an experience factor. They're doing the same things that they were doing last year that they had great success with on offense and doing a super job with it. They're rated #1 offensively in the Southeastern Conference. So, there should be no reason for us to have a letdown.
They love to throw it. They come out in all different kind of formations. They split you out, and sometimes they get in tight, but mainly like to split you out and throw the ball. They probably throw it about 75–80% of the time. They believe in their passing game.
They are very physical. They're a very strong defense, and the big thing I guess is going to be most important for us is to play as a unit. If we could play together and play a mistake-free game, then we could come out victorious.
Look for an offensive showcase Saturday night in Nashville. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports, Tuscaloosa. Alabama's off to a good start in '83, better than some expected. And after last week's 40-0 shellacking of Ole Miss, the Crimson Tide moved up 6 places in both polls. Is Alabama on the verge of being a great team?
Well, I think that we have the potential to be a great team this year. A lot of factors going to be involved. How soon the freshmen come along, how fast they come along, how well the upperclassmen continue to improve. And I think by the end of the season, we should have a pretty good team.
I think we've got the potential to be national championships once again this year. A lot of people didn't think so. A lot of people thought we did, but they just didn't know when it was going to be when we were going to be able to exemplify that.
Well, I don't want to speculate on how good we can be. I'm still taking a wait-and-see attitude. We have the potential to be as good as anybody else in the nation, but I wouldn't want to speculate on anything like that right now. We have Vanderbilt in the way right now, and that's what we need to take care of them.
Well, I had a feeling about how good I thought we could be before we ever played the first game, just on talent. But there are a lot of ingredients that go into making a great football team or a real good football team or being as good as you can be. A lot of it's playing together. A lot of it's most all of the players, or a high percentage of the players, being an unselfish type player from an individual standpoint. Egos are involved. Injuries are involved. There's so many parts that go along with having a very successful year or a great year.
The next test for Alabama comes this Saturday night in Nashville against Vanderbilt. Coach Perkins admits this will be the sternest test so far this season for the Crimson Tide.
I think we're going to tell a lot about our team this week. This will be our first road trip. We're playing a team that is not highly regarded by a lot of people. I certainly hope and I believe that our team has a lot of respect for Vanderbilt.
A further look at the Commodores tonight at 10. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports, Tuscaloosa.
Implementation team. God, that's a hard word.
undertaken by postmasters for 200 years. If you will, raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. You'll say your name. I 145 offices that he would say. So help me God. Congratulations. I extend to you the official.
Listed some 7 demands placed upon me, and I think that sometime on the morning of Councilman Watkins has an unconditional, immediate duty to testify before the Montgomery County Grand Jury with no strings attached. I think his legal position in this matter is extremely weak. I think that his offer to negotiate springs from a very, very weak legal position. I fully expect the Alabama Supreme Court to order Councilman Watkins to come before the Montgomery County Grand Jury and to testify.
Point, ladies and gentlemen, I call this news conference to give would be interested in. But since Joe is one of the prime movers, if not the prime mover, behind what is happening at the university, I feel an obligation to show everyone that he simply is not fit to be a leader of people, period, and certainly not of a state institution of higher learning.
This was the last State Board of Education meeting for Dr. Gundy, who's leaving his position as chancellor next month. But he's also leaving behind his ideas about changes needed in the state's two-year schools.
Well, for some time we've been examining ways in which we can make the two-year colleges more effective and more responsive to economic changes and development.
Dr. Gundy's plan includes the administrative mergers of many two-year campuses. That is, allowing the schools to keep operating, but letting one group of administrators handle the business affairs for several schools. That would be linked to another part of his plan, reducing the number of administrators by not replacing many of those who retire or quit. All of this comes under a general idea to cut administrative costs and put more money into instruction. Finally, Dr. Gundy would like to review and revise many programs currently offered by the schools to make sure they're making the most of every education dollar.
I have said that education in Alabama for the best interests of education is over-politicized and underfunded.
How much politics interfere or help with Dr. Gundy's plan, he says, will be critical to its success or failure. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News. The plan proposed by Dr. Gundy would help cut back what he calls a top-heavy system, where he says too much money is being spent on administration and not enough is being spent on instruction. He expects political opposition.
I think there will probably be rather extensive political reactions to this, and I'm not talking just about members of the legislature or members of the administration. I'm talking about political reaction in general, which is not bad because it's part of the democratic process. And
in addition, Dr. Gundy is calling for updating of teaching programs and mergers of many two-year schools to avoid duplication and unnecessary expense. For now, though, these are all just ideas that must stand up to scrutiny by the governor as well as the board, and they'll have to do that without Dr. Gundy's help, since he'll be leaving office next month. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Listen up, when I call your name, you pick up your bag. First guys will load on the rear bus right there. First guys. When I call your name, sound off.
These 91 troops are the last of some 600 men from the 46th Engineering Battalion at Fort Rucker that will be taking part in the combined training exercises in Honduras, codenamed Big Pine 2. These men usually work with trucks, cranes, and dozers, but today their tools were replaced with machine guns, M16s, and field packs. The heavy construction equipment was shipped to Honduras via the state docks in Mobile several weeks ago. Unit officers described the morale as high as the troops boarded the buses.
How do you feel about going down there?